So I want to make this video because I assumed a lot of you are going to be rolling for Heng and Imbibitor Lunae, and he works just like Seal essentially. The same teams you find yourself using Seal in, you probably want to use that character in also. The only twist is that he doesn't really utilize that character Bronya too well. That is, if you watched the previous video, you understand exactly what I'm trying to say, and we'll get into that in this video. So right off the bat, the reason why I say he works just like Seal is because Seal is a hyper carry focused damage dealer. Well, Heng and Imbibitor Lunae is also a hyper carry focused damage dealer. So all of these supporters that Seal likes to use in her hyper carry teams is what Heng and Imbibitor Lunae would love to use as well in his own hyper carry teams. So let's just get this out the way. A character like Bronya would work really well with a character like Heng. The only exception is that A, the Bronya needs to be pretty dang fast, which is hard to achieve for many players. And B, you want to have a couple of things for Bronya to make up for the fact that she also is a character that can be skill point negative for the team. Eidolon 1 really helps with getting in those extra skill points, which is very important for a character like Heng, because currently we don't have any character that is able to generate skill points for the team as a, let's say, Harmony character, for instance. And Bronya's Light Cone is also very valuable because this is another generation of a skill point for the team comp in the which you would use Heng as a hyper carry. So all the skill points you can get very much so matters. You get one from the Light Cone, and then you also do get one from her Eidolon 1. So if you have both of those things, her Eidolon 1 and her Light Cone, and you have a pretty fast Bronya, where you're able to weave in basic attacks before you even use the elemental skill on Heng and Imbibitor Lunae, then you'll have a character that works really well with Heng. But if you don't have any of those things, then you probably don't want to use Bronya with him. However, Yukong is a character that works really well with Heng because of all the buffs Yukong provides, while also being a 4-star, meaning she's more accessible for many players in the game, and you maybe have some of her Eidolons already, which greatly boosts her supporting capabilities for a character like Heng and Imbibitor Lunae. When it comes to light cone choices, Planetary Rendezvous, of course, is going to be best in slot, and the reason being is because the damage boosting capabilities of Yukong will be further increased with this light cone because Heng will be of the same element as Yukong, making this light cone best in slot for her and any other imaginary characters in that team composition, like Blue Ultra, for instance. Yukong gives very nice attack boosting capabilities to the allies, which makes her very good in hyper carry team comps anyways. Yukong also gives crit rate crit damage to the allies on top of the attack boost, making her a character that makes your characters crit more often, which will in turn means you'll take advantage of having higher crit damages and you'll be much more consistent with your crits, which overall increases your damage output for DPS based characters. And Yukong herself is a very nice character when it comes to breaking the toughness bar of the enemy, which is very good for a character like Heng if you're using the imaginary set on him. The imaginary set is really good on Heng if you're using him with Yukong, for instance, because the 4-piece effect, you're able to increase your crit rate and crit damage by a further amount if the enemies are debuffed. And of course, you all already understand how strong the imaginary weakness break effect really is. I mean, you delay their action and you reduce their speed, which means they will take even longer to take their turn, unlike the quantum weakness break effect, which just delays the enemy's turn but doesn't give a decreased speed to that enemy. If you combine that with the fact that maybe you can even use a character like Well in the same team composition, you'll have a very strong weakness break effect and a very strong abuser of that weakness break effect. The other character you probably will find yourself using a lot of the time with Heng and Imbibitor Lunae is a character like Tingyun, who gives energy to the ally in the hypercarrier setting, in this case Heng. And Tingyun is also a very nice character to give attack buff and damage boost to that character, meaning she's going to work very well alongside a character like Yukong, who provide the crit buffs to Heng. This character will give the energy and further damage increases to that ally. And Planetary Rendezvous wouldn't work for Tingyun because Tingyun is of the lightning element, meaning she would only damage boost other allies of the lightning element, and Heng Imbibitor Lunae is imaginary. If you have access to this Battle Pass Light Cone, which increases the attack, the crit damage, or the energy regeneration of the team, then probably use this Light Cone because this is going to be very good for Heng anyways. Every single buff here is very valuable for the character. He always wants to get his ultimate up, and a character like Tingyun gives energy to that ally anyways, so having the energy regeneration rate increase is very valuable for Heng, and the attack and crit damage is very good for hyper carry damage dealers in general. But if you don't have access to that, then of course meshing cogs is pretty good. If you have refinements on this on your Harmony character, then you're able to get their ultimates more often. And in this case, for Den Heng Imbibitor Lunae, having his ult more often means the character will be much more skill point efficient. So Tingyun will be very nice to have with Meshing Cogs because she'll get her ult more often, which means Den Heng will get his ult more often. So now we have the two Harmony characters in the hypercarry team of Den Heng. This is, of course, isn't Den Heng. Let's just go ahead and grab the character. Boom. So Imbibitor Lunae right here. We have his two best Harmony supporters. If you have, of course, the stuff for Bronya, then I would use Bronya over a character like Yukong, for instance, or maybe over Tingyun, depending on which character you want to use more than the other. I say Tingyun is probably better, more optimal with Bronya instead of Yukong, but of course, it's up to your preference. And then the last slot will, of course, be your defensive option. If you have Luocha, use Luocha because he is of the imaginary element, which means he'll have a lot more synergy with a character like Yukong, who already buffs imaginary element a lot. And on top of that, he is also a very skill point positive character, which works in the case of Den Heng Imbibitor Lunae, who wants all these skill points he can get, as much as he can get, honestly. But if you are free to play, then of course Natasha is still pretty valuable. You just have to make sure that your skill point management game is on point, because of course, like I said, you just want Den Heng to eat up all the skill points in this team composition. And Yukong will probably be draining skill points as well, so you have to be mindful of having another character that may also drain skill points too. And as for the DPS man himself, what should you build on Den Heng Imbibitor Lunae? And I said previously in other videos that he's not able to take advantage of the modes welcome you like other characters would be able to, because he doesn't get the elemental skill part of the attack increase. So he would only have up to either 48 or 30%, depending on the level of your light cone, of course. So he wouldn't be able to take advantage of this light cone entirely, but it's still a really good option on the character because you have your attack increase, which is, like I said before, very good for any hyper carry damage dealers. The Destruction Light Cone is definitely up there as being his best option if you don't have anything else. And the reason being is because he does a lot of hits on the enemy with his enhanced basic attack. So he'll be able to break the weakness of the enemy a lot more consistently. And he'll have his attack increase whenever he does attacks on the enemy. So that means this is going to be a very strong Light Cone for him, because he'll have so much damage increases from just equipping the Light Cone and just being a character that naturally procs it really well. The Wastelander of Banditry Desert Relic set is, of course, going to be best in slot form because you'll have your crit rate and crit damage increase, and you'll have imaginary damage bonus as well. And that condition of the 4-piece only matters if the enemy is, of course, imprisoned. And, well, if you're using Den Heng, if you're using other characters of the imaginary element in your team composition like Yukong, who has very nice toughness breaking potential, then you'll have the uptime on the 4-piece pretty much 100% of the time. When it comes to accessory piece, the Rutilant Arena is going to be very good for the character because you increase your enhanced basic attack damage and crit rate as well, which for a character like Den Heng, you're going to be using your enhanced basic attack most of the time. So that is very good for the character because you'll further increase your damage output. So there you have it. That is the quick and simple version of using Den Heng and how you would build his team, and the relic choices and light cone choices of his supporters and he himself. Hopefully you got something out of this. Let me know if we should do more of videos like these. I thought it'd be a good idea just to do it because I knew a lot of you probably will be going for the character. I personally won't be rolling for Den Heng Imbibitor Lunae because I don't have gems out the wazoo. And unfortunately, I'm not even guaranteed, so there's a chance I could just miss the character entirely. That's the video. Thank you for watching, and have a nice rest of your day. Good luck on your pulls, of course. Peace.